The air conditioning inside the Orange County family court was slightly chilly, but it was nowhere near as freezing as the words of the man sitting across from me. Holding the cheap government pen, I pressed the tip against the signature line of the divorce settlement. My strokes were neat, without a single trace of hesitation. Across the table sat Sterling, my husband of 5 years. He was slouching on the wooden bench with one leg crossed over the other, an unlit cigarette twirling between his fingers, his eyes overflowing with undisguised superiority. "Once you sign that, Eleanor, you are no longer my wife." He let out a soft chuckle, not loud, but just enough for the other people waiting in the lobby to hear. "From now on, nobody is going to be your free meal ticket. Nobody is going to pay your rent or your utility bills. I really want to see how a 30-year-old woman who only knows how to scrub floors is going to make a name for herself in this world." I did not look up. I simply slid the signed agreement across the table. The friction of the paper against the wood made a soft scratching sound. Over our 5-year marriage, I had transformed from a young woman full of dreams into what he called a frumpy housewife. He never lifted a finger for any household chores. He never shared his income. Even when his mother was hospitalized, I was the one who used all my paid time off to stay by her bedside, bathing and feeding her. While he was out dining and drinking with other women, I endured all of it until 3 months ago. That was when I found a smudge of lipstick that did not belong to me in his car, along with a receipt from a luxury boutique hotel. In that moment, all my years of tolerance shattered into dust. Sterling picked up the pen and scribbled his name with a flourish. His movements were fast, as if he were completing a completely trivial task. With a sigh of relief, he tossed the pen aside, stood up, and adjusted his expensive, bespoke suit jacket. His gaze shifted right past my head toward the entrance. Standing by the double doors was a woman in a silk slip dress, balancing on 6-inch Louboutin heels, pacing impatiently. It was Chloe, the mistress he had been hiding. Chloe's makeup was flawless. Her lips painted a trendy shade of crimson, and her dress rode high on her thighs. Hanging from the crook of her arm was a limited-edition designer bag I had admired for months but could never bring myself to buy. "Hurry up, Sterling. Stop wasting your time with people like her," Chloe called out in a sickeningly sweet voice. Her eyes, however, scraped across my face like daggers, carrying blatant provocation. She walked over to Sterling, naturally linking her arm through his, pressing her body against him. She purposefully tilted her chin up. "We have to go look at cars this afternoon. Do not delay our real plans." Sterling patted the back of her hand, his tone dripping with indulgence. "What is the rush? We are officially done here." He turned his head to look at me, a mocking smirk playing on his lips. "I might as well tell you, Eleanor. I am taking Chloe to Beverly Hills this afternoon to pick up a Rolls-Royce, a $500,000 car, something you will never see in your entire lifetime." He paused as if afraid I was not humiliated enough, and added, "If you end up living on the streets, do not come begging me." From the second this paper was signed, we are completely done. I slowly stood up, folded my copy of the divorce decree, and slipped it into my leather tote. Inside the inner pocket of my bag, my phone screen was still glowing. On it was a massive spreadsheet I had stayed up all night finalizing. The meticulously organized rows documented every single hidden asset Sterling had secretly transferred over the past few years. From real estate to stock portfolios, from domestic bank deposits to offshore Cayman accounts, nothing was left out. I raised my head and met Sterling and Chloe's gazes. My face was completely devoid of expression, neither angry nor sad. "I wish you both a long and miserable life together," I said softly, my voice as calm as a deep pool of water. Sterling clearly did not expect this reaction. He froze for a second, then scoffed. "Stop pretending. I know you are dying inside." Chloe immediately chimed in. "Exactly. Some women just cannot live without a man, but still insist on playing the strong, independent type. It is pathetic." I ignored them, turned around, and walked toward the courthouse exit. The sound of my heels clicking against the marble floor was crisp and clear. Every step felt like I was crushing the memories of the past 5 years, grinding my worthless sacrifices and grievances into the ground. As I reached the doors, my fingers brushed against my phone in my pocket. Behind me, Sterling was still holding Chloe, urging her forward. "Let us go, let us go. We cannot let the dealership give your favorite Phantom to someone else." Chloe's giggles echoed through the hall, full of vanity. "You are the best, babe. Not like some people who cannot even afford a decent parting gift." I did not break my stride. Stepping out of the courthouse, the bright California sun warmed my skin. I pulled out my phone, opened my contacts, and sent a text to a number saved as Attorney Harrison. "Divorce finalized. Proceed with the plan. A few seconds later, Attorney Harrison replied, Received. All preparations are in place. The trap is set. I locked my phone and looked up at the cloudless blue sky. Sterling thought I was a soft target he could manipulate at will. He thought I would walk away with nothing. He thought he could live a glamorous life with his mistress. What he did not know was that for the past 5 years, while I appeared to be entirely consumed by domestic duties, I never stopped observing and learning. Every time he cheated, every time he moved money, I saw it. I documented it. I quietly collected the evidence, waiting for the perfect moment. And today, the moment I signed that paper, my counterattack began. I hailed an Uber Black and entered the address for the Rolls-Royce dealership in Beverly Hills. The driver glanced at me through the rearview mirror. That is a heavy-hitting spot, ma'am. Buying something nice today? I smiled faintly, just going to look at some cars. As the SUV pulled away from the courthouse, I looked out the window and saw Sterling opening the door of a Mercedes AMG for Chloe. She twisted her waist and slid into the passenger seat. That was the very same car I had paid the down payment for using my own corporate bonus years ago. Soon, the Uber merged onto the freeway, heading toward Los Angeles. I leaned back against the leather seat and closed my eyes, picturing Sterling and Chloe acting obnoxious at the dealership. I could easily imagine Sterling flashing his supposed wealth in front of the salesman and Chloe posing on the showroom floor. But they had no idea that what awaited them was not the Rolls-Royce of their dreams, but a meticulously orchestrated public humiliation. My phone vibrated again. It was an automated text from the bank. It notified me that the account freeze and cancellation requests I submitted previously had taken full effect. I opened my eyes, a subtle smile curving my lips. Sterling, Chloe, it is time to pay your debts. The Uber pulled up smoothly in front of the glass doors of the Beverly Hills Rolls-Royce dealership. Pushing through the entrance, the blast of air conditioning carried the rich scent of premium leather. The showroom was lavishly decorated, with crystal chandeliers reflecting dazzling light onto a lineup of sleek black vehicles. The elegant lines of the cars exuded an innate, aristocratic aura. I deliberately slowed my pace, pretending to inspect the vehicles while keeping my peripheral vision locked on the main entrance. Barely 5 minutes later, the sharp clacking of heels and Sterling's loud voice pierced the quiet showroom. See, Chloe? I told you. This place has the best phantoms in the entire state, Sterling boasted, his voice filling the room before he even fully stepped inside. He walked in with his arm tightly wrapped around Chloe's waist. Chloe's thin slip dress looked completely out of place in the freezing, professional showroom, but she did not care. She walked with her chest, pushed forward like a proud peacock, her eyes sweeping over everyone in the room. When her gaze landed on me, she visibly stumbled. She clearly had no idea I would be here. A flash of shock crossed her eyes, quickly replaced by thick contempt. She intentionally leaned closer into Sterling's chest and raised her voice. Sterling, baby, is this the white phantom? I saw it in a magazine last month. It is absolutely gorgeous. Saying that, she pulled away from him and trotted over to a pristine white phantom, reaching out to stroke the chrome detailing. Her nails dragged against the paint with a crude possessiveness. A sales consultant immediately approached. He was a young man in a sharp suit, wearing a flawless professional smile. Good afternoon, sir, ma'am. Are you looking to purchase today? The Phantom is one of our most prestigious models, fully loaded. Sterling patted Chloe's shoulder, tilting his chin up as he put on the persona of a billionaire. Exactly. My wife loves this model. We are taking it today. He deliberately emphasized the word wife, shooting a pointed glance in my direction. I pretended not to notice. I walked over to a black Ghost nearby, pulled out my phone, and pretended to take pictures of the interior while actually recording their every move. The salesman's smile grew even more enthusiastic. Excellent taste, sir. This Phantom features a V12 engine and fully bespoke interior tailoring. The current asking price is roughly $500,000. Hearing the price, Chloe's eyes lit up, but she turned to Sterling and pouted playfully. Oh my God, that is so expensive. Are you sure you want to spend that much on me? What is there to worry about? Sterling sneered. He pulled a sleek black card holder from his inner jacket pocket and flipped it open. Inside sat 3 heavy metal black cards. The minimalist design screamed elite wealth. He pulled one out and handed it to the salesman with a dismissive flick of his wrist, as if discussing the price of a coffee. $500,000 is just a number to me. If you like it, we buy it. His voice was perfectly calibrated to ensure every other customer and employee in the showroom heard him. Several people turned their heads, their expressions a mix of curiosity, envy, and judgment. Chloe's vanity was instantly satisfied. She triumphantly raised her chin, walked to the driver's side, and yanked the heavy door open. She slid into the plush leather seat, gripped the steering wheel, and started fixing her hair in the rearview mirror. She shot another provocative smirk in my direction. "Come look at this interior, Sterling. We can take this on our road trip to Napa Valley." Sterling laughed, walked over, and leaned in to whisper something in her ear, making her let out a grating, high-pitched giggle. The salesman held the black card, barely containing his excitement. "Please wait just a moment, sir. I will head to the finance desk to process the payment. Will this be a cash purchase?" "Of course it is cash. Do I look like I need financing?" Sterling waved his hand impatiently, his tone dripping with superiority. "Hurry up. I have a busy schedule today." I lowered my phone and casually strolled over to where they were standing, acting as if I needed help from the staff. "Excuse me," I asked the salesman. "What are the performance specs on that Ghost over there? I am interested in learning more." The salesman turned to me with a polite smile. "Ma'am, the Ghost shares a similar engine platform but has a more dynamic chassis, perfect for daily driving." Before he could finish, Sterling interrupted him loudly. "Lady, I highly suggest you look at a different dealership." He looked me up and down, his eyes lingering mockingly on my understated dress. "A Ghost is 350 grand. Not just anyone can walk in here and buy one. Stop wasting the salesman's time." Chloe popped her head out of the Phantom to echo him. "Seriously. Some people need a reality check on their social status. A Rolls-Royce is not something you can just touch." My expression remained utterly blank. I simply looked at the salesman. "I am here to buy a car, not to listen to random people lecture me. Please continue your explanation. Thank you." The salesman looked incredibly awkward. On one side was the arrogant, flashy Sterling, and on the other was my calm, unbothered demeanor. He hesitated, then nodded. "Certainly, ma'am. Right this way. I can show you the interior details." "Do not bother showing her anything." Sterling suddenly raised his voice, his face darkening. He clearly felt I was ruining his moment of glory. "Process my paperwork first. Ignore this broke woman. She cannot afford a steering wheel in this place." Saying that, he pulled the other 2 black cards from his wallet and slammed them onto the display podium. "Swipe all 3 if you have to. Just get the paperwork done right now. I want my wife driving this car out of the lot today." Chloe laughed triumphantly, stepping out of the car. She wrapped her arms around Sterling and mouthed the words "broke loser" directly at me. I did not react to her childish provocation. I simply took 2 steps back, positioning myself where I had a perfect view of the finance desk. I gently tapped my phone screen, knowing full well the main event was about to begin. Intimidated by Sterling's aggressive posturing, the salesman carefully picked up the 3 metal cards. "Right away, sir. I will process these at the desk immediately. It will only take a moment." He practically jogged toward the corner payment counter. Sterling kept his arm around Chloe, pacing around the Phantom. Chloe gasped dramatically at every detail, praising the paint job one second and the Starlight headliner the next. They looked exactly like a couple who had just won the lottery. The commotion had drawn the attention of other wealthy clients in the showroom. People were whispering, "That guy is loaded, dropping $500,000 like it is nothing. Yeah, look at how he acts. Definitely a tech CEO or something. The girl is gorgeous. No wonder he is spending so much." Sterling heard every word of these whispers. He straightened his posture, his face glowing with extreme arrogance. I stood at the edge of the crowd, watching the spectacle like a perfectly directed comedy. I knew exactly how miserable Sterling was going to be in just a few minutes. The salesman reached the terminal and swiped the first black card. The showroom had grown relatively quiet, with most eyes drifting toward the finance desk. Chloe was practically bouncing on her heels, clutching Sterling's arm as if she could already feel the heavy crystal key in her palm. My heart beat slightly faster, not out of nervousness, but pure anticipation. I watched the salesman insert the chip into the terminal. His fingers typed quickly, and he hit the enter button. A few seconds later, the machine beeped sharply. The salesman frowned. He pressed the button again, but the screen displayed the same error. His fingers stabbed at the keypad multiple times, a thin layer of sweat forming on his forehead. The showroom was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. All eyes were locked on the little black machine and the salesman's stressed face. Chloe's eager smile began to stiffen. She tugged at Sterling's sleeve. "Baby, what is taking so long?" Sterling's arrogant smirk faded slightly. He yelled across the room, What is the holdup? Is your machine broken? The salesman looked up, a mix of apology and deep confusion on his face. Sir, I am so sorry. This card is reading as account closed. I cannot process it. Sterling's voice spiked, as if he had just heard the funniest joke in the world. What did you say? Closed? Impossible. I just had that card issued last month with a $250,000 limit. How could it be closed? He stomped over to the desk, snatched the card from the salesman, and inspected it aggressively to make sure it was his. He shoved it back. Run it again. You are doing it wrong. A murmur rippled through the crowd of onlookers. Account closed? How does that happen to a black card? Chloe hurried over to the desk, her pride vanishing into sheer anxiety. Yeah, try it again. You definitely messed up. Sterling's account would never be closed. Flustered, the salesman took the card and inserted it again. He typed in the amount and hit enter. The terminal beeped again. Account closed. Please contact issuer. The sharp beep echoed loudly in the quiet showroom. The salesman threw his hands up. Sir, it is really declining. It says closed. Sterling's face went through a terrifying transformation. From triumphant, to confused, to violently red. He snatched his cardholder back, pulled out the second black card, and slammed it onto the counter. Use this one. This is my corporate executive account. I literally paid a vendor with it yesterday. His voice shook with anger. He stared at the machine as if trying to intimidate it into working. The salesman quickly grabbed the second card and inserted the chip. The crowd held its breath. Chloe clasped her hands together like she was praying. But nothing changed. The terminal beeped again. Account closed. No way. Absolutely impossible, Sterling barked, completely losing his mind. He grabbed the third card and shoved it into the machine himself, pushing the salesman out of the way. His knuckles were white. He aggressively typed in his PIN and slammed the enter button. He forgot to breathe as he stared at the screen. A few seconds felt like an eternity. When the words account closed flashed on the screen for the third time, Sterling completely froze. The color drained from his face, leaving him as pale as a sheet of paper. He stared at the machine in absolute disbelief, then looked down at the 3 heavy metal cards in his hands. His body began to tremble. Chloe's face was equally pale. She grabbed his arm, her voice cracking into a whine. Sterling, what is going on? Why are all your cards closed? Did you not say you were rich? Did you not say $500,000 was just a number? Her voice was not quiet, and it carried clearly across the showroom. The whispers of envy from the crowd instantly shifted into blunt mockery and harsh laughter. Oh my God, he was just faking it. 3 dead cards. How embarrassing. Said $500,000 was just a number, but his cards are all declined. I knew it. Real money does not act that obnoxious. He is totally broke. Every word felt like a physical blow to Sterling and Chloe. Sterling snapped his head around, glaring viciously at the wealthy onlookers. Shut up. Everyone shut your mouths. But his screaming only provoked more laughter. Some people even pulled out their iPhones, openly recording the meltdown. Look at this, a real-life fake billionaire getting exposed. This is going on TikTok. Seeing the cameras, Chloe panicked and tried to cover her face with her hands. The salesman, having lost all his professional warmth, cleared his throat awkwardly. Sir, your cards are definitively closed. Do you perhaps want to call your bank? Or do you have another form of payment? Wire transfer? Another form of payment? Sterling snapped, severely triggered. What do you mean? Are you calling me poor? I have plenty of money. There is just a glitch with these specific cards. He pulled out his phone, frantically swiping through his banking apps to find an alternative account. But as he scrolled, he realized the horrifying truth. For years, Sterling had relied entirely on these 3 high-limit joint accounts to fund his lavish lifestyle and his mistresses. He assumed his company's revenue would always cover his spending. To impress Chloe, he had moved virtually all of his liquid cash into these exact accounts to inflate the balances. His personal checking accounts had barely enough to cover a decent dinner, let alone a $500,000 car. I stood quietly in the crowd, watching his world crumble. A faint smile graced my lips. Sterling would never guess that the cancellation of those 3 cards was entirely my doing. Before the divorce, Attorney Harrison and I had pulled all the financial records. We proved that all 3 of these accounts were opened during our marriage, using community property funds. Under California law, both spouses have equal management and control over community bank accounts. Last night, I contacted the bank, provided my identification, the marriage certificate, and the source of funds documentation, and successfully exercised my legal right as a joint owner to freeze and close the accounts to prevent the dissipation of marital assets. The bank processed it immediately. Those 3 black cards were now useless pieces of metal. Sterling was still frantically refreshing his banking apps, sweat dripping down his forehead and soaking the collar of his expensive suit. Chloe, realizing the situation, started complaining loudly. "This is all your fault. You had to come buy a Rolls-Royce today. Now look at us. We are a laughingstock. I told you not to be so flashy." "Shut up," Sterling roared, turning his rage onto her. "Are you blaming me? Who was begging me for this car 5 minutes ago? Who said they loved it? Now that there is a problem, you throw me under the bus?" Chloe was taken aback by his shouting, but her own temper flared. "I only begged you because you bragged about being so rich. I thought you could actually afford it. But look at you, you are just a fraud." The two of them started screaming at each other right there on the showroom floor, throwing wild accusations without any regard for the audience. The salesman shook his head in disgust. The crowd was loving the drama, some people even egging them on. I checked my watch. The show was getting repetitive. I stepped back, preparing to head to my next destination. But before I left, I saved the video of them screaming at each other and texted it to Attorney Harrison. "Evidence received," Harrison replied instantly. Moving to the next phase of the strategy, I put my phone away and walked over to the dealership's client lounge. The climate control here was perfect, a stark contrast to the heated chaos near the finance desk. I poured myself a glass of sparkling water. Just as I took a sip, I saw Sterling dragging a stumbling Chloe toward the lounge. They were still aggressively fighting, spit flying from their mouths. "Are you done throwing a fit? Can you leave me an ounce of dignity?" Sterling shoved Chloe onto a leather sofa, his voice shaking with suppressed rage. Chloe almost fell over. Once she stabilized herself, she fired right back. "Dignity? You have the nerve to talk about dignity? You just humiliated us in front of Beverly Hills elite. If you were actually rich, your cards would not be declined. You are a complete con artist." Her shrill voice made several other clients in the lounge scowl and shift away from them. Sterling's chest heaved. He pulled out his phone with trembling hands and dialed the bank's elite customer service line. He put it on speakerphone, slamming it onto the glass coffee table. "Listen to me. What the hell is going on with your bank? Why were my 3 black cards closed? If I do not get a proper explanation right now, I am suing your entire institution." The phone clicked, and a calm professional voice came through the speaker. "Good afternoon, sir. Could you please verify the last 4 digits of the cards in question?" Sterling barked the numbers out. "Hurry up and check. Stop wasting time." The lounge went dead silent. Everyone was eavesdropping. Even Chloe stopped crying and leaned in to listen. A few seconds later, the representative spoke. "Sir, upon reviewing your accounts, I can confirm that all 3 cards were closed yesterday afternoon. The joint account holder, Eleanor, appeared in person with valid identification and legal documentation to initiate a freeze and closure of community property funds. The procedure was fully compliant with federal banking regulations and California state law." "What? Joint account holder?" Sterling looked as if he had been struck by lightning. He screamed at the phone. "Impossible. I never authorized that. Are you saying someone stole my identity?" "Sir, as this was a joint community property account, either spouse has the legal authority to request a freeze or closure without the other's signature to prevent asset dissipation." The representative's voice remained incredibly polite. "If you have a dispute regarding marital assets, we advise you to contact your family law attorney. Thank you for calling, and have a wonderful day." The line went dead. The dial tone echoed from the phone, sounding exactly like a harsh slap across Sterling's face. He sat frozen, staring blankly at the cracked screen. "Joint account holder. How? How did she know?" Chloe immediately started screaming again. "I knew you were a fraud. Now look. Your wife closed your accounts. You do not have a dime to your name. Getting involved with you was the worst mistake of my life." "Shut your mouth." Sterling grabbed his phone and violently smashed it against the floor. The screen shattered, sending shards of glass flying. The sudden violence made the people nearby jump back. Chloe shrieked and fell silent for a second, terrified. But she quickly recovered and doubled down. "Why are you breaking your phone? If you have so much money, go pay for the car. Did you not say $500,000 was just a number? You are broke and throwing a tantrum like a child. How was I supposed to know she would close the accounts?" Sterling's eyes were bloodshot. He looked like a cornered animal. "It has to be her. Eleanor planned this." Suddenly, he looked up and locked eyes with me, sitting quietly across the room. I held my glass of sparkling water, watching him with absolute serenity. He had no proof, only a gut feeling, which only made his rage more impotent. Chloe followed his gaze and saw me. The realization hit her. It was you. You did this, you psycho. We are already divorced. Why will you not let us go? She tried to lunge at me, but an older woman sitting nearby stood up and blocked her. Excuse me, young lady, keep your hands to yourself. The woman frowned, looking disgusted. This is a public place. You are disturbing everyone with your trashy behavior. Mind your own business. Chloe shoved the woman. This is between me and her. The woman stumbled, and her husband immediately stood up, glaring fiercely at Chloe. Do not touch my wife. What is wrong with you? The other clients chimed in. Seriously, zero class. You cannot afford the car, so you throw a tantrum and assault people. Chloe's face turned bright red, but she pointed a shaking finger at me. It is her fault. She is jealous that Sterling is going to marry me, so she maliciously closed his accounts to humiliate us. Sterling finally found a target for his humiliation. He stormed over to my table, slamming his hands down on the glass top, leaning menacingly close. Eleanor, was this you? Did you do this because you are a bitter, jealous ex? I slowly placed my glass down, looked up, and met his furious eyes. Sterling, you need evidence before making accusations. Why would I go to such lengths for someone like you? We are officially divorced. My tone was incredibly calm, yet carried a chilling authority. Sterling was momentarily stunned into silence. The crowd immediately took my side. Yeah, where is your proof? You are officially divorced. Why would she care enough to sabotage you? Sounds like you just ran out of money and need a scapegoat. The whispers sliced into Sterling and Chloe. Sterling's face shifted from red to pale white. He opened his mouth but could not formulate a single word of defense. Chloe started crying loudly again. It was her. Only she would do something so evil. Sterling, call the cops. Have her arrested for fraud. Call the cops? The idea seemed to ignite a spark of hope in Sterling. He pulled out his backup work phone and started dialing 911. I watched him panic, a cold smile forming on my lips. He had absolutely no idea that closing the accounts was a fully legal maneuver backed by community property laws. Even if the LAPD showed up, it was a civil domestic matter. He would get absolutely nowhere. Just then, the dealership's general manager marched over, having been briefed by the sales team. The manager wore a tight smile, but his eyes were hard. Sir, ma'am, I must ask you to lower your voices. Your dispute is severely disrupting our business and harassing our clientele. If you cannot conduct yourselves professionally, I will have to ask security to escort you off the premises. Sterling's finger hovered over his phone. He looked at the manager's stern face, then at the disgusted wealthy clientele surrounding them. The fiery rage in his chest was suddenly extinguished by crushing humiliation. He knew that even if the police came, they could not force the bank to reopen a closed account. It would only make the public spectacle worse. He took a deep breath, swallowing his pride. I apologize. We will keep it down. But Chloe refused to let it go. Why do we have to leave? We are paying customers. The manager's smile vanished completely. Ma'am, you have not successfully processed a single transaction. You are not clients. Furthermore, your aggressive behavior violates our showroom policies. Please leave immediately, or I will have you trespassed. Sterling grabbed Chloe's arm and yanked her hard. Stop it, we are leaving. Chloe glared at him, but forcefully sat back down, muttering curses under her breath. Desperate, Sterling dialed another number. His voice completely changed, taking on a pathetic, pleading tone. Hey Dave, it is Sterling. Man, I am in a bind. Can you wire me a short-term loan? Just need some liquidity for a few days. What? You do not have the cash? We have been doing business for years, Dave. Come on. He hung up, his face darkening. He dialed another number, then another. He called business partners, investors, and friends. The response was identical every time, polite rejection or immediate hang-ups. What he did not know was that before I froze the accounts, I had Attorney Harrison anonymously leak documents to his primary investors and vendors. The documents proved Sterling had been embezzling company funds to support his mistress and hide assets from his divorce. Realizing his business was legally compromised and functionally insolvent, none of his partners wanted anything to do with him. Some were already preparing breach of contract lawsuits. Sterling dropped his phone onto the table. It was as if all the bones in his body had been removed. He slumped into the sofa, staring blankly at the floor, sheer terror written across his face. Seeing him completely defeated, Chloe's last shred of hope evaporated. She started sobbing for real. Sterling, are you seriously broke? What am I supposed to do? I did not sign up to live in poverty. I do not know what to do now. I do not know either, Sterling whispered, his voice hollow and exhausted. The surrounding crowd, realizing the drama was over, began to disperse, though everyone shot them a parting look of pity and disgust. I picked up my glass, finished the sparkling water, and stood up. Watching the two of them turn on each other, I knew this was only the appetizer. The real nightmare for them was just beginning. They were going to pay a much heavier price for everything they had stolen. I smoothed my dress and walked toward the exit. As I passed their sofa, I slowed down and spoke softly. Best of luck, Sterling, Chloe. Sterling's head snapped up. He wanted to scream at me, but simply lowered his head in defeat. Chloe glared at me with pure venom, muttering insults she was too afraid to say out loud. I did not look back. I walked through the sliding glass doors into the brilliant California sunshine. I pulled out my phone and texted Attorney Harrison. Phase 1 is complete. Prepare the clawback lawsuits. Harrison replied immediately. Ready when you are. The trap is snapping shut. I stood under the shade of a palm tree, waiting for my Uber. A few minutes later, the dealership doors flew open. Sterling was dragging a hysterical Chloe out onto the sidewalk. The strap of her slip dress was falling off her shoulder, her mascara running down her cheeks. Her manufactured Hollywood glamour was completely gone. What are we supposed to do now? Your cards are dead. Nobody will lend you $1. How are we going to survive? Chloe yanked her arm free, her voice shrill with panic. I was so blind to trust a useless loser like you. Sterling's mind was already a mess. Being insulted on the street pushed him over the edge. You think I want this? If someone was not sabotaging me, we would be driving back to LA in a Phantom right now. They stood on the sidewalk of Wilshire Boulevard, screaming at each other, causing pedestrians to stop and stare. People began pulling out their phones to record. I decided the timing was right. I walked over to a nearby kiosk, bought 2 bottles of cold water, and strolled over to them. Sterling. Chloe. It is a hot day. Have some water and calm down. I offered a bottle to Sterling, my voice perfectly level. Seeing me, Sterling exploded like a powder keg. Eleanor. I knew it. You are the one who froze my accounts, aren't you? You malicious bitch. He violently slapped the bottle out of my hand. The plastic cracked against the concrete, water spilling onto the hot pavement and instantly evaporating. Chloe, suddenly finding a target for her rage, lunged at me. She aimed for my hair, screaming, You ruined everything. I am going to tear your face off. I was prepared. I simply took a step to the side. Chloe missed entirely, tripped over her massive heels, and slammed hard onto the concrete. She groaned in pain, clutching her scraped knees. Chloe, please mind your behavior, I said, staring down at her coldly. I have no obligation to tolerate your tantrums, and I certainly have no obligation to fund your greed. Seeing Chloe on the ground, Sterling lost whatever sanity he had left. He balled his hand into a fist and swung directly at my face. You shoved her. I am going to kill you. Just before his fist connected, 2 massive hands grabbed his arms from behind and pinned him back. It was the dealership's private security. They had been watching the altercation from the doors, anticipating violence. Sir, back away right now, the security guard ordered, twisting Sterling's arm into a lock. Let me go. This is a private matter. Keep your hands off me, Sterling struggled, his face turning purple, but he could not break free from the trained guards. The crowd of onlookers grew larger. Murmurs filled the street. Look at this guy trying to hit a woman. Total coward. I heard her say she froze his accounts. She seems totally calm, though. They look like lunatics. I picked up the unopened bottle of water, unscrewed the cap, took a sip, and spoke clearly. Sterling, you do not need to act so unhinged. Yes, I froze your accounts. The street went dead silent. Everyone looked at me, including Sterling, who was still pinned, and Chloe, who was sitting on the pavement. Sterling's eyes bulged. It was you. We are divorced. Why would you do that? That is my money. Your money? I let out a cold laugh. I unzipped my tote and pulled out a thick stack of legal documents, tossing them at Sterling's feet. Take a look yourself. The funds in those 3 accounts were community property acquired during our marriage. You used my legal share of our assets to fund a mistress, buy luxury goods, and funnel cash into offshore accounts. Did you really think I was completely blind? The papers scattered across the pavement. The bold print clearly displayed bank statements, transfer logs, and property deeds under fake names. Every single transaction was highlighted. A bystander in a business suit looked down at the papers and whistled. "Oh, community property fraud in California. That is a felony-level offense if he hid it during discovery. No wonder she froze the accounts. I would have done the exact same thing." Sterling's face drained of color. He stared at the documents, his body shaking uncontrollably. "How? When did you find all this?" "From the very first night you didn't come home. From the very first lie you told me," I said quietly. "I am not an idiot, Sterling. I noticed every red flag. For 5 years, I sacrificed my career to maintain our home. You repaid me by stealing what was legally mine to play sugar daddy. Now I am simply taking back what belongs to me through the legal system. Is there a problem with that?" Chloe looked at the documents on the ground, then at Sterling's horrified face. The truth finally dawned on her. She let out a piercing scream. "Sterling, you lied to me. You said you made all that money yourself. You said you didn't love her anymore. You promised me a massive wedding and a life of luxury. It was all a lie. You were spending her money." Crying hysterically, she scrambled up and threw herself at Sterling, pounding her fists against his chest. "You con artist. You never had real money. You used me." Sterling, still restrained by security, could only take the blows. "Chloe, listen to me. It is not what it looks like." "I am not listening to you," Chloe shrieked. "You are a fraud." The crowd watched in amusement. Someone yelled, "Good for her. Cheaters and gold diggers getting what they deserve." Seeing the situation escalating again, the security guards pushed them apart. "All right, enough. Break it up or we are calling the LAPD." Chloe collapsed onto the curb, sobbing into her hands. Sterling, finally released by the guards, stood surrounded by hostile glares and mocking whispers. He had never been so humiliated in his entire life. He reached down to pick up the documents, but I stepped on them with the heel of my shoe. "These documents have already been filed in Los Angeles Superior Court," I stated clearly. "I have initiated a clawback lawsuit. Under the law, I will recover every single cent of community property you fraudulently transferred. That includes the West Hollywood condo you bought for Chloe, the Mercedes, the jewelry, and the cash." Sterling looked up at me, pure terror in his eyes. "Eleanor, you cannot do this. I gave those things to Chloe. You cannot just take them back." "The law says otherwise," I replied coldly. "Those were purchased with marital funds. It constitutes unjust enrichment. Not only do I have the right to demand full restitution, but because you acted with malice to hide assets during a divorce, the judge is legally permitted to award me 100% of the hidden funds as a penalty. You will leave this marriage with absolutely nothing." At that moment, the wail of police sirens approached. The dealership manager had called the cops when the physical altercation started. 2 LAPD cruisers pulled up to the curb. Officers stepped out, hands resting on their belts. "Who called? What is the disturbance here?" The manager quickly explained the situation. The officers reviewed the scattered documents, then spoke to me, Sterling, and Chloe separately. Sterling tried to play the victim, but faced with hard financial evidence and my calm demeanor, his excuses fell flat. The officers gave Sterling a stern warning. "Hiding marital assets is a matter for the civil courts, but if you assault this woman or cause another public disturbance, you will leave in handcuffs." They then turned to Chloe, informing her that receiving stolen marital property could open her up to civil liability, and told her to vacate the area. They advised us to let our lawyers handle the rest. As the police returned to their vehicles, the crowd slowly dispersed, though people kept looking back, whispering about the dramatic takedown. I looked at the shattered remains of Sterling and Chloe's relationship. I felt no pity. This was the bed they made. I picked up my documents, thanked the officers, and turned to walk toward my waiting Uber. Sterling suddenly lunged forward, grabbing my arm. "Eleanor, please. Do you have to be so ruthless? We were married. Can you not leave me with something to survive on?" "Ruthless?" I scoffed, pulling my arm free. "Did you think about leaving me anything when you were funneling our savings to a mistress? Did you care that we were married then? Everything happening to you right now is the direct consequence of your own greed. Do not blame anyone but yourself." I turned and walked away. Sterling stared at my back, wanting to chase after me, but Chloe grabbed his jacket. "Do not bother. We are ruined. Have you no shame left?" Sterling stopped in his tracks, looking around at the hostile street. He dropped into a squat, burying his face in his hands, letting out a guttural sound of pure agony. I climbed into the back of the Uber. As the car pulled away, I glanced out the window. Sterling was still crouched on the sidewalk, Chloe weeping beside him. A faint smile touched my lips. I pulled out my phone and texted Attorney Harrison. Phase 1 successful. Let us initiate Phase 2. Harrison replied, Understood. All paperwork is finalized. Awaiting your signature. The Uber dropped me off in Century City. I walked into the sleek, modern glass high-rise that housed Harrison's law firm. Taking the elevator to the 30th floor, I found Attorney Harrison waiting by the conference room, holding a thick stack of folders. Eleanor, right on time. Everything is ready, he said, gesturing for me to enter. He spread the files across the massive mahogany table. Sunlight filtered through the floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating the intricate financial web Sterling had tried to weave. Harrison pointed to the top document. We traced the funds. 3 years ago, Sterling used his cousin's name to purchase a luxury condo in West Hollywood in cash. The deed is in his cousin's name, but the wire transfers came directly from Sterling's personal account, which was funded by your joint business income. Furthermore, Chloe has been living there rent-free. I looked at the property records. My heart was completely still. I had anticipated all of it. And here, Harrison slid over a brokerage statement. 6 months before you filed for divorce, he liquidated a massive stock portfolio and transferred the funds to a Cayman Islands shell LLC. Through international forensic accounting, we proved he is the sole beneficial owner. On the table also sat the purchase agreement for a Mercedes-AMG. The buyer was listed as Sterling, but the title was transferred to Chloe. The purchase date was exactly on our 4th wedding anniversary. Every single item here represents community property. No matter how many shell companies or relatives he uses to hide it, California law allows us to pierce the veil, Harrison stated confidently. We also have the receipts for the Cartier jewelry and the designer bags he bought her. The chain of evidence is flawless. I flipped through the pages. Each one was a testament to his betrayal. He thought he was a criminal mastermind, completely unaware that paper trails never truly disappear. Is this enough to force full restitution? I asked. More than enough, Harrison nodded. Because he acted with intent to defraud his spouse, Family Code Section 1101H applies. The court can penalize him by awarding you 100% of the undisclosed assets. He will be wiped out. An associate lawyer entered the room, handing me a freshly printed clawback demand letter. It detailed the real estate, vehicles, offshore cash, and luxury goods to be seized. We are filing for an emergency ex parte order to officially freeze all remaining assets, including the West Hollywood condo, Harrison explained. I also got word that Sterling just tried to contact his cousin to quickly sell the condo, but he was too late. We already filed a lis pendens on the property. No buyer will touch it. I took the pen and signed my name on the legal filings. Every stroke was firm and resolute. This was not about petty revenge. This was about justice. It was about taking back my life. We will serve Sterling and Chloe today, Harrison said, gathering the documents. We will give them a chance to surrender the assets voluntarily. If they refuse, we take them to trial. Given the evidence, our win rate is absolute. My phone buzzed. It was a message from the private investigator I hired. It contained a photo of Sterling at a Starbucks, aggressively arguing with his cousin. It looked like they were fighting over who would take the fall for the real estate fraud. I showed the picture to Harrison. He chuckled. The pressure is working. They are turning on each other. I stood up and shook his hand. Thank you, Harrison. Execute the plan. The next morning, Harrison and I stood in the lobby of Sterling's corporate office building in downtown Los Angeles. We waited near the security turnstiles. Shortly after 9 a.m., Sterling walked through the revolving doors. He looked exhausted, clearly having not slept, but he was trying his best to project the image of a successful CEO. Harrison stepped into his path. Mr. Sterling, I am Attorney Harrison, representing Eleanor. You are being officially served with a clawback demand and notice of asset freeze. He thrust the thick legal envelope into Sterling's chest. Sterling looked at the legal seal, his face turning an ugly shade of gray. He tried to shove it back. I am not reading this. This is extortion. Take it, Mr. Sterling. You have been served, Harrison said firmly, letting the envelope drop onto Sterling's briefcase. The list details every piece of marital property you fraudulently transferred. You have 3 days to initiate the return of the assets, or we will see you in court. Employees arriving for work began to stop and stare. Whispers echoed in the lobby. Asset freeze? Is the company going under? I heard he got caught hiding millions from his wife. Sterling panicked. He tried to yell, "This is a harassment campaign. My finances are fine. Just then, a sleek black town car pulled up outside. Mr. Carmichael, Sterling's biggest venture capital backer, walked in with his entourage. Seeing the commotion, Carmichael frowned and approached. Sterling, what is going on here? Litigation? Sterling stammered, sweating profusely. Mr. Carmichael, it is just a misunderstanding, a bitter divorce dispute. Harrison politely handed Carmichael a summarized brief. Good morning. You may want to review this. It contains documented evidence of Mr. Pausant, Sterling committing financial fraud, embezzling company funds, and hiding assets. As an investor, his fiduciary integrity might be of interest to you. Carmichael scanned the first page. His expression turned ice cold. Sterling, we were supposed to close the Series B funding tomorrow. Given this extreme liability, my firm is pulling out. The deal is dead. He turned and walked back to his car. Mr. Carmichael, wait. Sterling tried to chase after him, but security guards blocked his path. The lobby was buzzing with employees realizing their paychecks were now at risk. We will expect your response in 3 days, Harrison said smoothly. We turned and walked out. Looking back through the glass, Sterling was surrounded by panicked executives, looking like a man standing on a sinking ship. That afternoon, we visited Chloe's apartment complex in North Hollywood. It was a rundown, gritty building, a stark contrast to the West Hollywood condo she had been staying in, which was now locked down by the court. We waited by the stairwell. 10 minutes later, Chloe stomped up the walkway, wearing cheap sweatpants, her makeup smudged, looking exhausted. Miss Chloe. Harrison stepped forward. You are being served with a notice of restitution regarding unjust enrichment. You have 3 days to surrender the vehicle, jewelry, and funds illegally gifted to you from marital assets. Chloe slapped the papers out of his hand. Are you insane? He gave those to me. They are mine. I picked up the papers from the dirt. Under California law, gifts purchased with community property without the spouse's consent are voidable. You either return them, or you will be held financially liable in court. Suddenly, a battered Toyota pulled into the lot. Sterling jumped out, looking unhinged. Chloe, get in the car, we need to figure this out. Chloe saw him and exploded. Figure what out? You lied to me. Your accounts are frozen. The investors backed out. Now they are taking my car and my jewelry. You ruined my life. She ran at him, swinging her fists. Sterling pushed her back violently. Do you think I want this? Just get in the car. Chloe fell onto the patchy grass, screaming at the top of her lungs. Give me my money. If you do not pay me, I will go to the police and tell them everything about your offshore accounts. Neighbors opened their doors, watching the trashy spectacle. That is the girl dating the married guy, someone muttered loudly. I held up my phone, recording the entire meltdown. Do not touch her, Sterling, Harrison warned. Any physical altercation will be added to the police report. Sterling realized he was trapped. He tried to shush Chloe, dragging her toward the stairs. We will get the money. Just shut up and go inside. I sent the video to Harrison. More evidence for the judge. A week later, we sat in a mediation room at the Stanley Mosque Courthouse. The atmosphere was suffocating. Harrison and I sat on one side of a long oak table. Sterling and Chloe sat far apart on the other side, refusing to look at each other. The court-appointed mediator sat at the head. Let us get straight to it, the mediator said. We are here regarding Eleanor's petition for the recovery of community property. Sterling, do you admit to transferring marital assets to Chloe without your spouse's consent? Sterling stared at the table. I gave her gifts. It was not malicious transfer. Harrison immediately produced the bank wires. Multiple transfers exceeding $100,000, a real estate purchase under a proxy, and an offshore shell company. This meets the exact legal definition of malicious dissipation of marital assets. Chloe started crying loudly. Your Honor, I am a victim. He told me he was legally separated and that the money was from his personal trust fund. I did not know it was stolen. You lying parasite, Sterling snapped. You demanded the phantom. You demanded the condo. You knew exactly what was going on. I did not. You promised to marry me. You promised me a millionaire lifestyle, Chloe screamed back. You are a broke fraud. The mediator banged his hand on the table. Enough. Miss Chloe, ignorance of the fund's origin does not exempt you from restitution of unjust enrichment. You must return the assets. Chloe slumped in her chair. I cannot. The money is gone. I spent it. Your personal debts are your own problem, I spoke up, my voice cutting through the room. I demand full restitution. The condo, the car, the cash, every cent. If you cannot produce it, we will proceed to trial, obtain a judgment, and garnish your future wages for the rest of your lives." Sterling looked completely defeated. He looked at me, his eyes begging. "Eleanor, please, give me time. The company is failing. I can pay you back in installments. I gave you a chance to be honest during the divorce. You chose to hide it and humiliate me," I replied. "Mediation is over. We will see you in court." A month later, the final judgment arrived. Sitting in my newly leased design studio in West Hollywood, I read the email from Harrison. The judge ruled in our favor. Due to malice, I was awarded 100% of the hidden assets. The court ordered the immediate seizure and liquidation of the West Hollywood condo and the Mercedes. The Cayman accounts were repatriated via federal order. Chloe was held liable for the cash she spent and had a lien placed against her. Sterling tried to appeal, but with flawless forensic evidence, it was immediately dismissed. His life unraveled instantly. With his assets seized and his reputation destroyed, his venture capital backers pulled their funding entirely. His company filed for Chapter 7 bankruptcy within weeks. To pay off his mounting legal fees, he took out predatory loans from shady lenders, trapping himself in massive debt. I, on the other hand, used the recovered funds to officially launch my own interior design firm. Thanks to my years of industry connections and flawless work ethic, we secured 3 major commercial contracts in our first month. My team expanded from 3 to 10. I was thriving. One afternoon, after a successful client meeting, I was walking to my car parked near a discount strip mall in the valley. A loud commotion near a pawn shop caught my attention. "It is your fault. If you didn't demand luxury bags, I would not be bankrupt." I recognized the voice immediately. It was Sterling. I looked over. Sterling and Chloe were standing outside the pawn shop, looking completely disheveled. Sterling was wearing a stained t-shirt, and Chloe looked haggard, her designer clothes replaced by cheap, faded leggings. "My fault?" Chloe shrieked, hitting him with her purse. "You lied to me. You said you were a CEO. Now my wages are being garnished to pay back your ex-wife. You ruined my life." "You ruined mine." Sterling pushed her hard against the brick wall. They started physically fighting right there on the sidewalk over a few crumpled $20 bills they had just gotten from pawning a watch. Passersby stopped to watch, shaking their heads in disgust. I stood at a distance, watching the pathetic scene unfold. There was no anger left in me, only a profound sense of closure. This was the inevitable end of greed and betrayal. I turned around, unlocked my car, and drove away. The California sun was bright and warm, illuminating the road ahead. I had my career, my freedom, and a completely new life. The people who tried to destroy me were trapped in their own hell, and I was finally stepping into the light, living exactly the life I deserved.